because from the very beginning, New Yorkers have always been a rather rebellious lot, willing to take on forces larger than ourselves in the cause of liberty and freedom. It's that resilience, that strength, that spirit, that willingness to fight for a better future that was born in secret meetings in the taverns of Albany and New York City, charting a path forward under the weight of an oppressive power. Sound familiar?
Welcome to Off Topic on Politics. I'm New York One's investigative reporter, Courtney Gross. This week, Governor Kathy Hochul delivered her State of the State address. It's an opportunity to outline her vision and her policy priorities for the year ahead. Of course, it's a crucial year for her, considering she's up for re-election. So we will get you up to date on everything she proposed. And then Mayor Adams is back with a meme token, right? That's what we call it?
Meme coin.
Meme token, meme coin. Anyway, it's already sparking accusations of fraud. Our Bobby Cuza is here. He is our resident crypto expert, so he's going to get us up to date on everything that is Eric Adams and crypto.
Crypto expert as of 2 days ago.
I did own some crypto at one point.
You did?
I did.
Oh, you sold it?
I did.
Oh.
Bob Hardt's here. I owned Dogecoin before it was Doge, like years ago when it was like a meme, when it was catching on and people were talking about it, like the Daily did an episode about it.
How much did you make?
The Daily did an episode about it, and I was like, oh, I should buy this. Maybe I can make some money. And then I'm awful at the stock market. I should not have a Robinhood account. It's really, I forget that it exists. I think I lost, I bought like $50. So I think I lost like half of it.
Okay.
It's a
or
write-off.
something. Yeah. It was not a good move.
Good thing you didn't buy the NYC Token on Tuesday, but we'll talk about that later.
Let's wait. Let's first start with the governor's speech. This is obviously an annual tradition where the State of the State address happens. Does it happen every January, Bob?
It sure does.
Yeah. So it's like our State of the Union, and we get to learn about what Governor Kathy Hochul or her predecessors all want to propose for the state of New York.
One of her predecessors for a couple years, Andrew Cuomo, combined the budget speech with the State of the State speech, which on the one hand was nice for us because it killed two birds editorially with one stone, but really didn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah. So this is it's so important for her this year because she's running for re-election. I mean, the primary is in June. She already has a primary in the form of her Lieutenant Governor, Antonio Delgado. And then she has, obviously, if she makes it through the primary, whoever will make it through the primary will face off against Bruce Blakeman, the Nassau County executive. So we have to look at this speech through that lens. What were your big takeaways?
Yeah, although I don't think she's that worried about the primary. I mean, that was pretty funny in the in her interview with Errol Lewis on Inside City Hall on Wednesday. She made some comment like, there wasn't a big loss when Delgado, decided he was no longer going to be lieutenant governor and run. I guess he still is the lieutenant governor, but not really.
He just doesn't do anything. Yeah.
She said she's not really that worried about the primary, which I think is true. I don't think the primary is necessarily affecting her politics in this election year. So, but yes, I mean, we see
You think she's just thinking about the general election?
I think she's thinking about the general, but I don't know if it's necessarily, pulling her to the right in the way that you might traditionally think of the dynamics of a general election, like we saw with Lee Zeldin, who was really going after her on crime. This time, the dynamic is different, and you see her, we'll talk more about Mamdani, but she's kind of attaching herself to him and his priorities, especially with universal childcare, because she needs the Mamdani voters in the city, to come out for her in November. But I don't know. I mean, do you think this had like the campaign speech feeling on Tuesday?
I mean, it was two blueprints. It's a blueprint for the year, like every year, but it's also a little bit of a political blueprint. And I disagree with you. I don't think she's like losing sleep over Delgado, but it is something that at least her advisors are saying, this can't metastasize. So we don't want like cool people in Astoria who are far to the left who voted for Mamdani to get all excited about Delgado.
Right.
And there are certain issues like the pipeline that she's now supporting off the coast of Queens, off our coast near our homes,
neighborhoods,
that she doesn't want there to be rallying points. And it's a low turnout primary. But all these pissed off liberals in New York City showed up, and lo and behold, she somehow lost. So it's it's not likely, but it's something that why I think she does like having Mamdani on her side, because that insulates her from any kind of possible upset in June.
And I think the affordability aspects of her address were geared
Absolutely.
exactly to the primary. Affordability is such a huge issue, and I realize Republicans are going to be talking about it this year in the midterms too. It's obviously a conversation that's happening in the White House, and it's aligned somewhat with the president. But the childcare initiatives, I would say the car insurance initiatives, were geared exactly at that primary audience.
But I think, there's also ideological issues as well. And then there's the child care, which we can get into as well, which is like one of the main talking points of Mamdani, that she's sort of, I wouldn't say co-opted, but she's going along with.
She's co-opted.
Okay, she's co-opted.
Yeah, I think
All
she
right,
has
thank you.
a little bit.
I was trying to be nice.
She's
co-opted it, but
although she says, I will say that she thinks that she has credit for it because she talked about it in her address last year. That's her talking point, is that she's been talking about universal childcare for a year.
And
so
she has put, she has put money.
She was a pilot
towards
program
it.
that she had put towards it last year that was incredibly small, and now clearly Mamdani is the one that's putting all the political momentum and now the political financing behind it.
Yeah, and they had this big event last week, right,
Yeah.
where they appeared together and had this like very triumphant news conference about how universal childcare is coming, even though it's
not.
and we talked about this, how it's
Yeah.
still actually very incremental, and we're not seeing a huge number of spots for Q-care, as it's being called. Next year, it'll be rolled out, over a number of years, assuming Kathy Hochul is reelected in November. But yeah, that was, I think, one of the top lines of the State of the State on Tuesday. And there was the car insurance piece I thought was interesting because it seems like such an easy, low-hanging fruit. Car insurance is through the roof.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be easy to legislate to try to bring the cost down. But as far as cost of living goes, it's a really obvious one for people. And then there was also utility costs that came up. A lot of that, I think, falls under the umbrella of trying to address affordability.
But the interesting thing, you talk about power, the one thing that jumped out at me, which is you typically don't think of Democratic governors embracing nuclear power.
Yeah.
And she talked about that, which could be another thing that if I was Delgado, I would seize upon, because a lot of people on the left don't like nuclear power. And by the way, it's just interesting to me that can you imagine if the vice president was running against the president this year?
Yeah.
This is the third time in recent political history in New York State where the lieutenant has decided to run for their boss's job. So it's really wild. But anyways, that jumped out at me because that's not something necessarily that plays well in a primary.
Yeah.
So she's trying to do a little bit of a two-step.
You're from upstate, Bob. How would nuclear power and the idea of, I guess we already have 3 plants that are operating upstate. We obviously had Indian Point here that was 50 miles away from the city, and it was decommissioned and closed under Governor Andrew Cuomo. But the problem with that, and Hochul actually raised this during her interview with Errol Lewis, is that Indian Point power plant had provided 25 to 30% of the electricity for New York City. So there's a need, and she referenced it on Inside City Hall. If you don't want all these natural gas trucks coming in and all these oil trucks coming in, pumping different types of energy into your homes in New York City, spewing diesel gas everywhere, then you're going to have to start accepting other modes of power.
Or pay a lot more for what you're getting.
Yeah.
There was no plan when Cuomo pulled the plug. They just pulled the plug, and there was zero plan for it. And we're still sort of living with the legacy of the Shoreham plant on Long Island, which never opened. It was built, it was going to happen, and then never happened. This is one of the reasons why.
That was a nuclear power plant?
It was going to be a nuclear power plant. And that's one of the reason why power costs are still very high on Long Island. So in Hochul's defense, they're trying to come up with a solution. It's a little bit of everything, like she said in the speech. Some of those things, though, like a pipeline off the coast of Queens or a nuclear power plant near Syracuse or wherever it's going to be. I don't think they've given where the site is going to be. There's going to be pushback.
Nuclear is an interesting issue because it's not a cut and dry left-right issue. I think a lot of people on the left have come around to nuclear because it's clean, right? There's no emissions, and I think one of the big objections is that it's dangerous, right? You could have like catastrophic.
And you have to figure out what to do with the waste. Like
Right.
Germany used to have all these nuclear power plants, but then they shut them all down because they couldn't figure out what to do with the waste. And now there's a lot of solar and wind there, and in other parts of Europe too. But I think in Europe they're coming more around to it too.
France has a lot of nuclear power.
Yeah.
But the thing about nuclear power is if it's run perfectly, it's great. But if it isn't run perfectly, it could be a complete disaster. So you have to have like a 99.9%.
100%.
You're right. Because if the coal plant doesn't work well today, okay, you've polluted something. But a nuclear meltdown, I grew up with the 3 Mile Island near meltdown in Pennsylvania. And that was like front page news for a week until that was resolved. But then you look at Chernobyl. So if it works perfectly, it's great, and France has a great track record. But the question is, if a company is trying to cut costs to make more money at a nuclear power plant, that could be a real problem.
There was another controversial piece of her State of the State address that created some buzz, and that is this 25-foot buffer that she wants to create around religious institutions that basically say you can't protest anywhere, within 25 feet of a religious institution. This comes after controversial and nasty protests that occurred in Kew Gardens in Queens. Was it last week?
Yeah.
It was within the Mamdani. I think it was last week. The weeks are blurring together because there is so much news. Where there were people outside chanting that they supported
a synagogue.
Hamas.
Yeah,
Yes,
a synagogue.
exactly. So, I think that this proposal was spurred in part by that. Similar proposals in other states, like a 35-foot buffer outside of abortion clinics in Massachusetts, have been struck down by the Supreme Court. Nonetheless, Kathy Hochul wants to pursue this.
Yeah, and it's an interesting one too, because obviously Mamdani has been accused for months of fueling anti-Semitism, and the Palestinian cause is very central to his political brand. So, and after this protest in Kew Gardens the other day, he was criticized for not coming out immediately and forcefully denouncing the protesters who were chanting pro-Hamas chants. So, Hochul has made anti-Semitism more of, she's owning that cause, obviously a lot more than Mamdani is. So that was one part of the speech where you could kind of see them not breaking, but they're kind of taking different tacks politically. Whereas for the most part, and we can talk about the other Mamdani priorities and how Hochul has been handling them, but she's aligned with them on universal childcare and on affordability more broadly. Not so much on the free buses, right,
Yeah.
which she didn't mention in her speech. And I thought it was interesting on Inside City Hall with Errol on Wednesday night. She kind of left the door cracked slightly open as far as free buses. She's not on board with it, but she said it's not a no, it's a not right now.
It's sort of what you, as a parent, what you tell a kid.
Yeah.
Right? It's sort of like,
Not today.
not today.
Yeah.
Well, maybe later.
Yeah.
And it was like, I guess, the existing program, what is it? Is it Fair Fares?
Fair fares,
Yes.
yeah.
So I
Which
guess,
is 50% off for low-income New Yorkers.
right. So the head of the MTA, Jenna Lieber, several times has sort of floated to Pat Kiernan on Mornings on One, hey, maybe we could expand that. And I could see that possibly being the proposal.
Yeah.
Rather than, what did she say, it's would cost $1 billion
It's $1 billion,
in revenue.
yeah.
Yeah, and remember, there was already in Albany the pilot program that was passed a few years ago, spearheaded by Mamdani, for free buses, one route in each borough, which then ended up not getting renewed. But there is precedent for, there's an appetite for this type of initiative in Albany, but she's not on board with it yet. And yeah, if it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $1 billion, she says that's revenue that the MTA needs. And meanwhile, she's also talking about these big MTA projects. She talked about
Redoing Jamaica Station.
Redoing
which
Jamaica
actually is,
Station.
the fourth busiest station in the country, which was really surprising to me.
Oh, no, it's really, that's a former transit reporter. Both of us are
Yeah.
former transit
Yeah.
reporters. It's a hub.
Yeah.
Yeah, although it's not that run down. I kind of was surprised that that's being held up as
Southeast Queens. She needs the votes. Long
Yeah.
Island and Southeast Queens.
And then-
it's like so clear to me.
Yeah.
The moment I heard Jamaica, I was like, okay.
And then Second Avenue Subway, she wants the MTA to expand it across 125th Street,
Past East Harlem. Yeah.
right? But all the way through Harlem, which is
another very key voting area.
But
for a
when I heard that, I'm
Democrat.
thinking
it just
that
seems
well,
like this
it's
is
so
obvious.
cynical.
Oh my gosh!
But that and a lot of people commented on the fact that it's really no longer the Second Avenue subway. It's like the Harlem subway, because the original Second Avenue subway was supposed to go down the east side, down Second Avenue all the way to Chinatown.
I've been in one of the stations that was built.
Oh, right.
In like Chinatown, on Christie Street, I believe.
Decades ago.
Reporter. The station's still there.
Exists.
It's just like, and they take care of it in case that they ever bring it down there.
But first, they have to build it up to 125th Street from where it ends now at 96, and that's going to take years. So for it to then go west along 125th Street, I mean, if we see that built out in our lifetimes, we'll be lucky.
We'll be retired.
I mean, that's billions and billions and billions of dollars.
This is all to say that all of these proposals that Bobby is mentioning, this is all just like little nuggets of gifts to people, like I cynically said before, as she seeks re-election. And I think what you were getting at before, Bobby, is this is also a balancing act with Mamdani, because she needs to court his support, his constituency, his voters in order to get through the primary. But also, he's maybe a liability when it comes to the general election.
That'll be Mamdani who? What?
Yeah.
And there's the question of taxes, right? Which, again,
she ducked.
She had some, and it was interesting on Inside City Hall, again, when she was asked about it.
This Inside City Hall interview was amazing.
Well, the thing is, Errol was finally pressing her on some of these questions, whereas the speech is all flowery, and she doesn't really get into some of the details. So he's pressing her on taxes, and it seems like she has drawn a line in the sand on taxes, and she basically says
she can't raise taxes in an election year.
No,
you just 100%. You can't.
And,
it's just not a good idea.
And not only that, but she says we don't need to, right? She says we can provide money for universal childcare and for a lot of these other programs without raising taxes.
But the ramp up is so tiny, the program is so tiny that it's not going to be that much.
It's not that much.
This is what Andrew Cuomo and Bill de Blasio fought over in de Blasio's first year.
With pre-K.
Where Cuomo's like, I'm going to find you the money. And de Blasio's like, that's great. I still want you to raise taxes. And it was like you couldn't take yes for an answer. And that was one of the things that really, really poisoned the relationship. And Mamdani, even before he took office, said, well, if you find the money, I can live with you not raising taxes.
Yeah, he did say that, but still he did go up to the speech and was in Albany and had a press conference like mayors typically do after the governor's speech, because clearly, the city being a creature of the state, we rely on so much approval and funding coming from the governor's office, coming from the state legislature. So that relationship is key for Mamdani too. And even during that press conference, he still said he wanted to see those taxes get raised.
And she has, it seemed, kind of left the door open to raising corporate taxes. She's been pretty adamant that she's not going to raise income taxes on the wealthy.
Yeah.
Although
I could see the corporate tax happening because there's been so much buy-in from corporations, like via the Partnership for New York City and Kathy Wild, and all of these corporations, even what our former colleague Grace Rao has been doing, trying to organize people around this concept of universal childcare. It seems like companies recognize in New York City, in order to afford to live in New York City and keep your employees here, that you're gonna have to contribute in some way to making sure that they can have children and keep taking care of their children and work 40 hours a week.
Yeah, but I don't think a lot of corporations love the idea of raising the corporate tax.
Probably not.
It could happen. And remember, we have seen that oftentimes, especially if the economy's doing okay, revenues come in higher than projected, and the state has a little bit more money to play with than maybe they had anticipated. So there's wiggle room there to put money towards some of these projects without raising taxes. And like you said, it's an election year.
With a big asterisk, and this might be our final thoughts, that while there's wiggle room in revenue now, it was just yesterday where the president is saying he's going to punish sanctuary cities again and take away funding from New York City, presumably because we are a sanctuary city. So I think Governor Hochul has talked about how if Trump tries to take away state funding in any way, shape, or form, whether it's for childcare or because of a sanctuary city issue, that she'll take the president to court. That's what she said yesterday. But that still is a threat. If they're not signing the checks and putting the deposit into our bank account, then there's not going to be enough money to go around.
Yeah, it could be an issue. And also, by the way, standing up to Trump, we didn't even talk about, was another theme of the speech. And I think the biggest applause
we didn't
line.
even talk about the ICE stuff, yeah.
I think that was the biggest applause line of the whole speech when she talked about standing up to ICE and its abuses, and it was standing ovation. There's not that much the state can do, of course, but she talked about making it possible for people to sue ICE, when they violate constitutional rights, and then this other thing about not allowing ICE into sensitive locations like schools and hospitals and houses of worship unless they have a judicial warrant. So she's trying to, say that New York will push back against ICE and its overreach, but you can't stop ICE from carrying out enforcement.
I mean, the other X factor, so there's the federal money pot, which is the one X factor, and then the other is what the oil industry is for Texas is Wall Street is for New York. If Wall Street should somehow take a downturn, that could blow up a lot of the best laid plans, both of the mayors and the governors as well.
Yeah.
Okay, let's leave it there. When we come back, we are going to talk about Mayor Adams.
You got some of the New York City Token?
We'll get you some, brother. This thing is about to take off like crazy.
Okay, we know Mayor Adams, former Mayor Adams, loves crypto. He took his first salary in crypto. I don't actually think he took the first salary in crypto. He bought crypto after, because you can't get a salary in crypto. That doesn't exist, that infrastructure. Anyway, he's been very close to the industry, going on private planes to Puerto Rico with people that are in the industry. So this week, he came back, didn't take a brief exit or vacation from the public eye.
Well,
New York City politics.
He did go overseas.
He's been traveling for the last 3 months.
Right.
He wasn't even,
He was in
at City
Dubai,
Hall.
and where else did he go? I can't remember. He was overseas, and then he came back to New York only for a couple of days. And
In part to do this press conference that
Yeah.
Bobby Cuza was at. So I'm just going to hand it over to Bobby, and he can explain
well,
what
what's
happened.
funny is when we heard that he was doing this press conference in Times Square, first of all, Bob texted me at like 6 a.m. and said, we're going to send you to this Adams press conference. And I thought,
Just what you wanted to hear at 6 a.m.
Well, I was perfectly happy to
wonderful.
cover it.
I want to go to Times Square.
Thank you, Bob. But I was actually excited about it because I thought, this is going to be really interesting. I thought Adams was going to use this as a pretense to go after Mamdani.
Me too.
And I thought it was going to be him just bashing Mamdani, but that wasn't it at all. I mean, he did bash Mamdani a little bit, but that was really only after he was kind of prodded by reporters. The whole thing was this NYC token, this new meme coin, this new cryptocurrency coin that he was promoting. And his whole thing was the proceeds from the coin are going to go towards fighting anti-Semitism and anti-Americanism and
What is
educating.
anti-Americanism?
Well, he didn't really say exactly, but you can kind of imagine. And then he wants to educate students about cryptocurrency and
What I want my child to learn about is crypto, how to avoid spending
Well, they may have gotten a
real
lesson.
money
They may have
and
gotten
a
instead
lesson
this week.
We did get a
use
lesson.
Fake currency.
Unintentionally got a lesson in crypto.
Some other random currency to do what is most thought of doing illicit things.
Like, I don't want to
Anyway.
pay. Can I pay you in NYC meme coin? Do you take that?
Yeah, for my next salary.
But here's the thing, right off the bat, the whole thing was there's so many questions, and there's a lot of reporters at the news
So many
conference who were
questions.
like, wait, who are your partners in this? And the mayor wouldn't say. He said, well, it's on the,
Always a
all
good
on the
sign.
website. Well,
It's on the website.
he said it's on the website, which was not true. You go to the website, there's no information there about his partners. And there's very little information at all on the website. Some of what looked like links you clicked on and they didn't go anywhere. Then the site goes, for anybody who didn't follow the story, what happened was the trading, went live that evening, I think around 5 o'clock or so. And within, the space of minutes, the price spiked. So enormously, it went to like $600 million market cap. And then it later became clear that someone associated with this project had taken out $2.5 million, and then the coin crashed and it plunged down to like
I don't
100.
understand I don't understand crypto.
And then
that much.
eventually
I mean, it's like a stock. It's like a stock almost. It's like imagine if
Yeah.
someone in the like I'm talking up this great company, we all invest, and then suddenly I cash out all of my shares and leave you hanging. It's
Yeah.
called a rug pull.
Yeah.
It's called a rug.
Yeah.
It's like a pump and dump is
mean,
also the same idea.
It's something like out of the 19th century, but with 21st century technology.
Yeah, I actually didn't really know the term rug pull, but apparently this is common in the crypto industry. And immediately, I'm not a crypto expert. A lot of people who, in the political press aren't crypto experts. But this wasn't his political enemies who were going after Adams for this. It was the crypto industry, right? Like you go online, everybody in the crypto industry is immediately raising flags saying this is a rug pull, this whole thing is a scam, and people are accusing Eric Adams of having engineered this. Now, I will say there's no evidence that Adams was actually involved in cashing out and making money off this. And in fact, he has denied that through a spokesman. He said he didn't make any money off this. He wasn't, he didn't pull any money.
But he made somebody
someone
money.
did.
Yeah.
Someone did.
And it's also, I don't know for sure, but I think there's a plausible scenario where Adams didn't make any money off this, and in fact may have been
Duped.
sort of an unwitting actor in this. And duped. I don't. They may have used him to promote this thing, right? And the thing, it's called the NYC Token, which makes it sound like it's some
Subway
official.
token, yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
some official New York. But it has nothing to do with New York City. It's not officially sanctioned in any way. And it's just what they call a meme coin, which almost anybody can like spin up this crypto coin and put it on the market. And by the way, you know who else did this about a year ago? It was Donald Trump.
Yep.
There was a Donald Trump meme coin right around the time he took office. And he was...
The same thing happened.
The same thing happened. He was criticized at the time. And by the way, this whole scheme, when I first heard about it, I said, well, it seems like somebody's going to get in trouble over this. But it's not really illegal because crypto is so unregulated. And it's especially unregulated now under Trump's SEC, which said, I think sometime last year, they weren't going to regulate crypto.
He eliminated Trump eliminated part of the SEC.
Yeah. Meme
unit that
coin
was
is
looking
not
after crypto.
They said meme coin is not a security, so they're not going to regulate it. So there's this legal gray area where you can do this sort of thing, and maybe you can get sued by investors who lost money. And there were clearly investors who lost money on Monday or whatever day it was when this happened. But the SEC isn't coming after you. And also, ironically, the whole thing with crypto is that there's this blockchain technology where everything can be tracked. So which is actually the reason that these, crypto sleuths online were able to figure out who pulled the money, because you can see in the blockchain all the transactions.
You don't know the person.
You don't know who it is
You don't know the-
exactly.
You don't know the identity. You know a person did it.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a wallet, which is basically just a string of numbers, and you can see what other transactions that person has done, but you don't know who they are.
You don't know the identity.
Right.
I mean, the crypto, even the best crypto people are cowboys or cowgirls.
Yeah.
And in both the Trump case and in the Eric Adams case, these people who are sort of on the periphery of what's ethical and legal are condemning Adams and Trump. Like Brock Pierce, who is an ally, a political ally of Eric Adams, or was, it is quoted in the New York Times as saying, like, this doesn't look good.
Right.
So it's not good when the cowboy is saying you've jumped the fence. And in both these cases, it was like they're waving the red flag because it makes the crypto industry look bad.
Yeah, but the whole thing was that by Adams promoting it, again, it gave it this veneer of legitimacy, right? And it seemed like something sort of official, and it was for a good cause. It's going to promote anti-Semitism, which, by the way, it's not even clear what that means. I mean, Adams said money was going to go towards this combat anti-Semitism group. And he also said, like, HBCUs are going to be involved somehow in the education.
It's all of these like buzzwords, like education, anti-Semitism, HBCUs, like all good things that we want to help support. Meanwhile, it's like.
And Adams said
potentially
he's not going to take a salary. He's going to run the nonprofit that is behind this, but he's not going to take a salary. It's not clear if he's going to make some money in fees or something otherwise. But I mean, this whole thing for Adams, who, by the way, was indicted on corruption charges and had allegations of corruption swirling around his whole administration, leaves office, and then is almost immediately accused of participating in this scam, this crypto scam.
And the day that it collapsed, another former Adams aide was indicted on federal charges on bribery. Was it bribery and extortion charges? I mean, we can't miss Eric Adams if he never goes away. So he never went away. And then his first re-entry into the public sphere is this. And you're thinking, this is just a reminder of why his political stock completely collapsed.
And by the way, he then got on a plane.
I was about to say, and then a video went viral where he's, I mean, we don't know what happened before the video. We don't know what happened after the video. You may have seen the video where Adams is fighting with a woman that he was on a plane to Texas.
Right, because after the crypto press conference, he said he was immediately getting on a plane and going to Dallas and then to Senegal. Not clear exactly who he was meeting with, but this happened in Dallas, I think, where he had this altercation with a woman getting off of a plane, which it's hard to... we can't really
don't
say
know what happened, really, yeah.
led up to it, but he got into it.
He's seen swearing at the woman. The woman's swearing
Yeah.
back. They're swearing at each other. It's not a nice situation. He says he's going to get Brooklyn on her, whatever that means.
Now, Ed Koch used to do stuff like this after he was mayor, but the good thing for Ed Koch was there was no
Cell phone
iPhone, there was no phones. But I'm just thinking of when Jimmy Walker left the mayoralty and resigned and was he eventually reemerged as sort of a beloved character. And I'm just thinking, even Eric Adams is even screwing up the post-mayoralty part of his career.
Yeah, there's a couple of rules. You don't criticize your opponent at least too quickly. Maybe in
Your
a couple of
successor.
years from now.
Your successor,
Your
yeah.
successor, sorry.
So you
and
threw that
maybe-
out, right?
Yeah, that's gone. And then, I don't know, maybe you don't participate in crypto scams. That's the new rule. I
Yeah.
think that's going to have to do it for this week's episode, though. You can watch us all on Inside City Hall at 7 o'clock on weeknights. And we love your feedback. Send us an email at yourstory@charter.com. What am I talking about? You can subscribe to Off Topic wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like what you're hearing, leave a review. Thanks to our producer, Anthony Roman. Thanks for listening, everybody. See you next week.